Welcome to the Making Health Dooable podcast. I'm Cheryl Borchardt.
And I'm Sarah Shaw.
And together we're your hosts on this journey as you learn what it takes to live well.
We are dedicated to tackling topics that empower you to make massive progress in your health and wellness journey by using our pillars of health: eat well, move well, live well, and respond well.
At Dooable Health, our mission is simple: to help everyone live well. As a team of physicians, board-certified health coaches, and law enforcement experts, we're here to serve employees and first responders with coaching, workshops, and masterclasses designed to conquer stress, anxiety, and burnout.
But our dedication doesn't stop there. We're also committed to improving wellness for individuals like you by offering at-home lab testing and personalized coaching to support your unique needs.
Because whether you're an employee, a first responder, or simply an individual seeking better health, we believe that life can feel better for everyone when health is made doable.
So join us as we embark on this journey together, where we'll provide you with the tools, insights, and encouragement you need to thrive.
And stay tuned for enlightening discussions, expert interviews, and actionable advice that will inspire you to take charge of your well-being and live your best life.
Until next time, remember, life can feel better when health is made doable.
Before we begin, we have an exciting new offering from Dooable Health: at-home lab testing with our integrative health practitioner, Janine Finelli.
I'm Janine Finelli, integrative health practitioner, National Board Certified Health and Wellness Coach, and VP at Dooable Health. We offer at-home functional lab testing for individuals to test and not guess when it comes to their health. Whether you are interested in a deep dive under the hood because you love to geek out on numbers and want to really focus on moving forward with prevention, or you have symptoms, brain fog, digestive issues, hormonal imbalances, insomnia, low or no libido, water retention, headaches, all sorts of things that you just cannot figure out where they're coming from, through our at-home functional medicine lab testing with the best of the best labs out there, we can help give you answers. Schedule your initial consult with me so you can test and not guess by going online at doable.com/test. And for a limited time, get 10% off your initial consultation by using the code PODCAST in the checkout screen. doable.com/test.
Welcome to our Making Health Dooable podcast. We have a special guest that I'm very excited to spend some time with and introduce you all to. It is Chief Yaniero, Mike Yaniero from City of Jacksonville. He's now actually not the Chief of City of Jacksonville at this moment. He is the Public Safety Director. But let me introduce a bit of his past. It's very vast. It's very impressive. And then we'll ask a couple questions from you, Chief Yaniero. Am I allowed to call you Chief Yaniero?
Yes, that's
okay. We can still say that. Yes. Chief began his career in law enforcement as a patrolman with the Civilian County Sheriff's Department in Tennessee. During his tenure with the Sheriff's Department, he rose the ranks of lieutenant, supervising the criminal investigative unit and serving as the SWAT team commander. In 1995, he was appointed Deputy Chief of Police at the Bristol, Tennessee Police Department. And in 2004, Chief Yaniero began his career in Jacksonville, North Carolina, as police chief and was named the city's first public safety director in 2012. He continues that role of city's Jacksonville public safety director through today. He's a graduate of East Tennessee State University and earned a BS in criminal justice, as well as a master's in police studies. He's a graduate of the FBI National Academy and the Police Executive Research Forum Senior Management Institute for Police. Chief Yaniero has earned numerous certifications and awards in the first responder community, including 2012 Jacksonville Onslow Man of the Year. He's a past president of the North Carolina Chiefs of Police Association and is currently serving on the North Carolina Governor's Crime Commission. He and his wife, Faye, reside in Jacksonville, and they have 2 grown children, Rachel and Jacob. Welcome, Chief, to our Making Dooable Health podcast.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, we are excited to interview you and have you share your wealth of knowledge from that experience. You were a pioneer in helping Dooable Health get access and more kind of influence into the first responder community. We had worked with the municipality at Jacksonville for a few years as Dooable Health, just serving all of the municipality workers. But you came to Dr. Joe at one point and said to him that this health coaching and our program with Dooable Health would probably never work with the police. Is that right?
No, not really.
Hey, let me hear your version of that. I've heard Dr. Joe's version. Let me hear your version of our start with Dooable Health.
Well, I think one of the things that we talked about is we talked about the physical health and the physical coaching. But what I saw through Dooable Health was the ability for us to use that as the mental health piece. I mean, we were talking earlier, the normal person has 3 critical events in their lifetime. Those are life-changing events. The normal first responder has 800.
Wow.
And so trying to make sure that we keep our folks healthy is extremely important. And, the average age for a police officer is about 68 years old because of heart problems, because of strokes, because of stress. And so if we can start early, one of the things that I think is extremely important is that we can make them more healthy. And I think, when we talked about Dr. Joe, we talked about the physical piece. And really what I wanted to do was combine that physical piece with the mental health piece so that as an officer starts his career, they go through their career and the process supports both physical health and mental health.
Yeah. And I will add, you didn't douse our hopes that we could help first responders with saying it'll never work. But I think what it did for us was realize with those statistics of a civilian, such as myself, would experience 3 to 5 traumas or challenging experiences in life that could cause some trauma versus the first responder who's getting 800. That's phenomenal. And that's crazy. So how much more important it is that they do need this type of support and services. And you shared with us that this program would be great if it was a bit more first responder specific. So we had the opportunity to spend time kind of crafting and catering a bit of our messaging to be more first responder friendly, I say, and kind of hit on the things that are important for them to thrive, not just survive, but thrive in their profession. And so you all were the first ones to give us that opportunity, and we are forever grateful to you. And you also experienced our coaching too with Coach Janine. So you got firsthand
That's right.
the power and the impact of having a support system such as that in your corner. So speak a bit more to your experience with the coaching side of Dooable Health.
Well, I think that's an important part because it gives you an opportunity to have an educated discussion about the impact of things that affect our health, both mental and physical. We were talking earlier, we said, as I drive around the town, I've been to a homicide here, I've been to a fatal car crash here, and every time that we go by those locations, every time a first responder goes by those locations, it triggers a stress event. And so the process with the coach is, how do we reduce those stresses? How do we reduce those stresses so that our officers and our firefighters and our telecommunicators have a healthy life? Because that's really what we want. When we hire them today, we don't want to return them in 30 years a broken person.
Right.
And so using that process, having frank discussions about whether you're talking about police officers generally eat not very well when they're working shift work. They use fast food. And so how do we educate them is to, instead of going to a particular restaurant and getting a hamburger, what can we do to make their health a little bit better? Because, we all have seen it. We look around and we see an officer who's obviously overweight, who's obviously in his late 50s. And part of that is because our process, the way that we have to work, the way that we have to operate doesn't lend itself to a healthy life choices. And so the health coach helps us redirect what we're doing and give us that opportunity to make our health better. And I know from my standpoint, it's helped me tremendously because we've had talks about soft drinks. We've had talks about salt. We've had talks about toxins. We've had talks. And those things help us understand the impact that those things have on our body, which is additional stress. And so when we go back to those 800 incidents, if we can reduce stress in a number of different ways, our employees, our police officers, our first responders are going to be more healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. If you're not taking care of yourself using different tools, and I say there's a difference between tools and practices. Like we might know the tools, but we have to start to practice them, right?
Right.
All the tools to hone our skills. But if we can start to support ourselves in these smaller ways, especially as first responders, maybe we're more filled up or more prepared or more able inside mentally, physically, emotionally to handle those bigger ones that are bound to come as a first responder.
And just to go back to some of the coaching and some of the videos and things like that, is if I'm out patrolling as a patrol officer and it's supper time and I'm looking for a choice, then Dooable Health has given us some opportunities to look for alternatives, even in the fast food market. And so I think those are important things because it gets us to think. We're not automatically getting a hamburger and French fries and a shake. We're thinking about, the calorie intake. We're thinking about the fat intake. We're thinking about the salt intake, all those things that can affect that stress level, which is really what we want to get down, because the job is all of a sudden we go from 0 to 60 and all of a sudden, and that stress on our body, we need to work on that to reduce it. Again, because we're talking about these 800 incidents, we're talking about the constant stress of driving around the town and seeing where those things occur. So if we can reduce that, then we have a healthier employee. We have a better employee.
Right.
And we also have, when they leave, they have a better quality of life.
Yeah, you're so right. I love the idea of lessening the burden of stressors. If we can manage some of those small stressors in our life that we can control, we're going to be better off handling the ones that you guys can't control all the time. You're thrown into positions and scenarios and calls that are over the top when being fit and prepared, fit for duty. We talk a little bit about that in our curriculum. Well, actually a lot about that, being fit for duty physically, but so much of that is mentally and emotionally and relationally, and managing all that before hitting those events. Or after you hit those events, how can you respond into a healthy manner and manage those stressful, traumatic experiences? So tell me, in your department or over your experience in many different areas that we heard that you've served, how do you all foster kind of a culture to get officers to seek that out, to really look for help and avoid the stigma of, you kind of hear a lot of people are like, I don't need any help. But how do you foster a culture to get officers to seek that type of help?
I think educating them is probably the most important thing. And I appreciate the fact that, from a health coach standpoint, from the video standpoint, the podcasts that you do, they do give us tools that we can use. For example, officers are in and out of the car. They carry about 28 pounds of gear on their belt. And so maintaining good back posture and good back exercise is extremely important to them because, many officers retire because of back injuries or chronic back problems. And so giving us those tools allows us to keep them healthy, not just for the job, which is important, but for themselves and for their families.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I've learned that. I actually put one of your belts on when I visited in the department one time. One of them, I think, I'm not going to say who, but they were saying, it's okay, we can try this. We're safe in the department. I put on the belt and with all of the tools on it and all the gear, and it pulled my pelvis forward so hard that, I was out of alignment immediately. And so it gave me a real appreciation of how you all have to move and sit. Like even just one, sitting is hard, period, on our bodies, but then sitting with equipment on and a vest and a belt and knowing what to do with that. So yeah, I mean, you have to be very, very proactive, more so in the type of profession you're in for physical and mental type of health.
And when we started, we talked a little bit about, the general employees. And when we had that discussion with Dr. Joe and the uniqueness of being a first responder. So in April, I'll be a first responder for 50 years.
Wow. Congratulations.
Wow. But the important part is trying to maintain that health throughout that 50 years. And I mean, I could tell you stories about knowing that, whether it was the gun belt or whether it was the stress level or whatever it might have been that impacted my health at certain points in my career. Mm-hmm. And I think the important part is what I feel makes it nice, when we go back to the health coaches, being able to call Janine and saying, Janine, this is what I'm worried about. And what do you think? What kinds of exercises can we do? What kind of changes in the diet do I need to make in order to make sure that I'm living as healthy as I can in life?
Yeah, I know. To have that resource on tap is very valuable. Did you find in the beginning, I've learned this is a new relationship. A health coach is sometimes a new relationship in people's life. Not everyone grows up with, a health coach or even a counselor. So seeking out that support sometimes feels uncomfortable or they're not familiar with it. So sometimes they avoid. But how did you begin that journey of just establishing that relationship with Coach Janine and moving through it and it becoming kind of a life source for you for so many of the smaller and bigger things that you have in your profession?
Well, I tell you, when we first started the process, we started when we first contracted with Dooable Health. One of the things that we talked about was the health coaches. And as I talked to the health coach and as I understood the health coach as the police chief, one of the things that I thought was important was we can use this to make our officers' lives better. We can, even though it's generic, it's for all employees at that time, we can make our lives better if we utilize this, especially when an officer is young. I can remember as a very young police officer working midnight shift and eating 3 McDonald's, 3 Big Macs in one sitting.
Yeah. How'd you feel after that? Probably when you're young.
And when you're young, it doesn't matter.
All right.
But then you start to realize the impact that has on your body. And if we can get our younger officers to engage with health coaches, which I've encouraged in all 3 of our disciplines, whether you're a firefighter, whether you're a telecommunicator, because telecommunicators have a lot of stress as well as a police officer, then they can have a healthier career.
I agree. The ones who dispatch and take on those calls, sometimes I've realized and learned they never really get closure in what's going on.
Don't.
And that could be very traumatic. And also to hear the sense of hearing, maybe they're not smelling or seeing as much, but the hearing, they get the first, the very first experience of that trauma and they're just listening. So yeah, I know that that's a very hard one too. And there's a lot of sitting that profession as well. So,
well, and think about a telecommunicator who dispatches an officer or a firefighter to a dangerous situation and is sitting there at that console hoping that they're okay.
Right.
I mean, that stress level may be 20 minutes, it may be 30 minutes, it may be an hour. And so having that ability to de-stress is extremely important for them as well as the firefighters and police officers that serve our community.
Right. And finding some tools that will work for them will be really important, which is where we find our health coaching can support first responders in. Is let's talk about what's realistic. So yeah, getting an education and the sounding board of what can work. What are some of the things out there that will support first responders in these traumatic experiences? I also know, and I've learned a bit more as I go through this, supporting first responders more over the last 2 or 3 years, I've learned many things and I'm super appreciative of it. But I believe, and I hear a lot, that peer support can be a very valuable aspect in an agency.
We have a peer support team so that we can come in and back in the 1980s, I went to some of that CISD,
SM. Yep.
SMSD, they called it back then. And that process helps us gain closure.
Mhm.
I remember a particular situation where a neighbor jurisdiction had a fire where multiple people, it was a nursing home and multiple people passed away. And so talking to the firefighters and police officers who had that stress that were trying to get in to save those folks, I mean, that kind of stress goes on for a long time. And so if we can give them closure, if we can, talk about, because it's emotional for them, but it's not emotional for me. I mean, it is to some extent, but it's not the same kinds of emotions because if I'm a police officer and there's a person hanging out of the window and I can't help them, which is why most people become first responders, then that stress becomes a nightmare. And that nightmare goes on and on and on. And so if we can start to address that right at the beginning, then we can really have an impact on making sure that their health.
Yeah. I did have the privilege of going through the critical incident stress management. That's what you're probably speaking of, the CISM label, which I was able to do it just so I could understand how to support first responders more. And in that class was a ton of first responders, such as the dispatchers, the fire department. We had some Coast Guard there, lots of police officers and chiefs because they want to bring it in. But the thing that was really telling was they wanted you to debrief as quickly as possible, as close to the incident as possible, probably because our brains are still processing it, and open to bring it into a safe place of talking through it and being in a community of others that might have experienced it with you. So that was, having that peer support as quickly as possible too, I think is really important for.
And to some extent, first responders are a closed community, and the ability for somebody who has those life experiences to relate to someone else is, if you can't save somebody, that doesn't mean you did anything wrong. It means that situation dictated it. And what we want to do is make sure that those first responders don't carry guilt because I couldn't get in there. The fire was just too strong. I should have been able to get in there, and being able to talk through it with a peer who says, look, you couldn't make it. You couldn't get there. You couldn't do what you wanted to do, but the situation was dictated something different.
Yeah. After 50 years of serving too in a first responder community, how have you worked through a lot of those things? Because you're speaking from experience here. A lot of these examples, I'm sure, is something you've personally had. What's your greatest tool and asset for you to move through these?
Well, I think the most important thing is good physical health. I try to exercise every day. Because I think that's important. And then when I talk about exercising every day, one of the things the health coach has given me is alternatives that help me change up it, because a lot of times people just start and quit. And I think that's important. I'll tell the story. I chased a DUI when I was probably 20 years old, and I chased him down an alley. Well, the other officers found him about a block away, and they found me laying in the alley. I'll never do that again. I mean, I was like 23, 24 years old, and I started running. I started running first with a mile, then I started 2 miles, then I started 3 miles, and I started 4 miles. And I've kept that physical activity up since then, because I realized that that's an important part of making sure that, one, I'm healthy, and two, that I can do my job as effectively as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fit for duty. We want to talk about that a lot, because I say, this is my perspective as a civilian watching first responder work, is I look at you all as like our community athletes. Like, you are the ones that need to be fit and strong and protective and train and hone your skills. And there's a lot of pressure from the community on you. There's a lot of eyes on you. You don't get the same support as some of these high profile athletes, right? We wish that you had more funding and more support for sure. But to take on that responsibility as a first responder to take care of your body and to be fit for duty is really important. And I think that's something we want to see from Dooable Health and support the officers this way is I'd love to see officers come into the profession wearing a certain uniform size and leave wearing that same size or close and thrive in their lives after retirement. We want to see people thriving. And you've done a great job as the example of staying fit. I've seen you run your races at the Running with the Law. Like you're still a runner, right?
Yeah.
But a lot of time staying fit. And you've done our games every year. So I see your submissions. You actually won one of our categories. So yes,
Well,
Chief Yaniero.
that was a tough category, though.
They are tough categories.
They are tough, but they challenge us to make, and those kinds of things help us reduce stress. They also help us understand that we need to be diverse. And I think that's where where Dooable Health comes in, is that it allows us to look at different options and make us realize that, we just don't run all the time. We need to do exercises that help our back. We need to do exercises that help our neck. We need to do exercises that allow us to be able to pick somebody up or move something or move from one place to another. So all those things that we need to do to be effective in our job take different types of exercises. And, I'm starting to understand when we talk to our coach, when we do these challenges, that it's extremely important to be very diverse and make sure that our body is very diverse, because what we do is very diverse. One day we may be climbing up on top of a building. The next day we may be trying to drag somebody out of a burning building. The next day we may be chasing somebody who's committed some awful crime. And so each of those tasks take different types of muscle memory and muscle and exercises. And I think that's one of the things that's helped me is I just don't need to do A, B, and C. I need to do A, B, C, D. And then next week I need to do E. Next week I may go back to D, because it's important to make sure that my body is well-rounded.
Yeah.
Both from a physical and mental health standpoint.
Right. Yeah, I want to say all the time, and this speaks to the back pain issue that a lot of officers have, is just mobility is so important. And so many times it's very easy for us to skip over that and just go straight to running on the treadmill or the lifting of the weights, and forgetting that mobility is what keeps us going for a long time, right? And avoiding injury. Because if I'm not mobile, I'm going to injure myself at some point. So yeah, knowing where to focus your efforts, maybe where your weaknesses are. And this is something that Mark Ketchum mentioned because of the games. He was exposed to some of his weaknesses. He's like, I didn't realize that I wasn't able to do nice, heavy step-ups, So he turned and kind of focused some of his strengthening in the gym later on his leg strength. So yeah, it does open your eyes to that. But so that can feel overwhelming, though. I want to kind of dig into a little bit of, if you need to do all of these things to stay fit and able in your profession, how do you balance all of that? And how do you attempt it?
Well, I think balancing it is important, but I also think that the coach helps, right? So when you talk to a coach and you say, look, my back is hurting a little bit, or I feel my stress level coming up, then those suggestions and those information, whether it's information about don't drink soft drinks, which increases your sugar levels and things like that, which has an impact in your stress, all those things, putting those together helps us be more well-rounded. And that's really what we want, is we want a well-rounded first responder who can be there when he needs to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think too, you speaking so much into the support you've sought after in our health coaching, and I'm sure in other areas of your profession, but there's a lot of humility in that. And there's a lot of vulnerability to be able to show up and be able to share your struggles in that way. And I think sometimes that's something you have to work through and convince your profession that it's safe, it's effective, it's okay to trust others, and building that rapport is sometimes our role. But for you just to be courageous and step out as a chief and say, I'm going to seek this help. I don't have it perfectly. I'd like to have some help in this area, I think is a really big step and good leadership.
Well, but to be honest with you, one of the things that when Dooable Health came to us is I said, how can this process make our officers healthier? And so I just dove in. And the reason I dove in is because I saw the utility of what you do. If we could tweak it and focus on being first responder focused, then it could have an impact. It could have an impact on officers. I mean, we have an officers' lunch once a month and we talk about anything they want to talk about. And a lot of times what comes up is, why aren't you taking advantage of Dooable Health? Why aren't you taking advantage of learning about how to reduce your stress so that you're living a better life?
Right.
That you don't go home and yell at your kids and kick the dog. And how can we do that in this high stress environment that we've put ourselves in?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You've given them the tools and the resources and the permission and availability. I mean, it's a free resource to your officers too. So yeah, you've given them all of the opportunities and tools, and it is up to that person to really want to change and to want that support. But the culture that you created in your department has done so.
And I've seen a lot of officers take advantage of it and really understand that this helps them, whether it's the eating component, whether it's the back component, whether it's the exercise component, whatever, or the mental health component that we talk about, and making a difference in their lives. Mm-hmm. Keeping them healthy is one of the things that when we swear in an officer, we talk about is we tell the family, we want to return them back to you after you've loaned them to us, either better or the same as they are today after 30-year career. And in order to do that, that takes work and that takes expertise. And sometimes we don't have that expertise. And I think the partnership helps us be able to utilize all your tools to make our lives better.
Mm-hmm. The really important mission that you kind of stated there was committing to the families that we want to help our officers become better, or at least come out neutral after this profession, that's a big challenge. And so you are responsible. Yeah, you are responsible to help get them there and give them the resources and tools and support. And that's what we highly believe in too. We want to continue to serve first responders so that they are thriving. One, so that they're good at their job. Because as a civilian, I want to have very capable first responders around me. And then two, we don't want people to suffer that way. It's a really hard profession walking into, knowing that there's going to be a lot of setbacks and challenges, but there are support and there are tools and there are opportunities to really continue to move up rather than down, which sometimes this profession can cause. Mm-hmm. But I love that you commit to the families that you want to return them as they are.
Well, and the other thing is we don't want our first responders to retire at 62 and die at 68.
Right.
And so we want them to at least enjoy their retirement. And in order to do that, we've got to keep them healthy. Right. We got to keep them mentally healthy and we got to keep them physically healthy because the two are so interrelated. You can't do one without the other.
Yeah. And you even said for you, a lot of times coping with that stress and the traumas is for you to move your body, to take care of your health, because they do support the other. So yeah, one, if you can't get started anywhere, or if it feels too big to get started somewhere, I think maybe just starting with physical activity, like commit to being physically fit with activity or nutrition and focus on that. And a lot of times it'll spiral into the next best thing to do, right?
And our ability to have a health coach, or ability to go online and to look at how do we cook? How do we eat well? I mean, those are things that we can do 24/7 with a health coach, but the information that's available on Dooable Health, if an officer is sitting in his patrol car and he's thinking, what do I want to eat today? He can pull it up and he can say, well, here's a healthy alternative. Here's a healthy alternative to eating 3 Big Macs in one sitting.
Yeah. I know those resources are there all the time on our Dooable Health program and app for the officers. And you were such a big piece in helping us get to a place of, at Dooable Health, not just supporting regular civilian type people, but turning it and catering it towards the sound and the support that first responders need. And you even stepped up and did the health coaching as the first thing that, let me experience this. Let me see what it's like to have a health coach in my corner, and then give this gift over to our, first responder community that I get to lead. So you were so instrumental in helping Dooable Health become first responder supportive and specific. And we've grown since then because of your courage to say, this can work. If you guys can turn this into a first responder specific curriculum and serve us in that way. And we're continuing to build that content too as we go, and always honing it to be specific to what your needs are. But your encouragement and your belief in us on that has been so instrumental. And we're so grateful for your impact on Dooable Health.
Well, I'm selfish because I want our first responders to be healthy.
Of course.
And I see Dooable Health as one of the pieces to the puzzle to make them healthy, to make them physically and mentally healthy. In a time where I was doing an assessment of a police department, and they had a guy come in and he was talking about exercise to the officers in the roll call room, a 2 or 3 minute video. And as I go back to that 2 or 3 minute video that they showed during the roll call, and understand that we have to go to where they're at. That roll call was, well, I got to get out on the street. I got this to do. I got that to do. They're not paying attention. When they go to Dooable Health, they do pay attention because they physically went there to see that. When they talk to their health coach, they physically made that appointment so that they can talk to their health coach. And those things are much more dynamic and much more, they give us that ability to keep our officers and firefighters and telecommunicators healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. We're here to personalize it for them, and it's completely confidential anyways, but we want to meet that client and that first responder where they're at. What are they struggling with, and how can we support them? And even the smallest ways, that makes a big impact over time. Those small changes in habits will make a huge difference in that person's life. So, yeah.
I think they will too.
Yeah. Well,
thank you. What do you do?
No, I love it. This is something that I didn't know I needed, was working with first responders, and the opportunity that you've given us just as health coaches, but then also me being able to create the red versus blue games and bring it to your agency. You guys were my first adopter of that. And I'm grateful for your courage and your participation in it. And we have seen the trophy. We have a big Challenge Cup trophy that goes from station to station. It started out in the fire department year 1, but you have brought it back, or brought it to, for the first time, to the police station. Have you seen it downstairs at your?
I have.
Yep. The main desk.
So there's a little bit of rivalry there between the firefighters and police officers.
Yeah. And I guess, honestly, you can't speak to one side or the other at this point. You have to be very partial or non-partial to one side or the other. Yes. So maybe next year you can kind of guess. I mean, whatever team wins is the team you worked for, right?
That's right.
Because now you serve both fire and police.
That's right.
No, but it's been a fun experience. I'm grateful for the work we get to do with y'all. And thank you so much for your insight today, and always your support to our program over the years.
Well, thank you.
Thanks again, Chief. I appreciate your time.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Hope you have a great day.
Thank you. You too.
As we wrap up another insightful episode of Making Health Dooable, we want to express our gratitude to you for joining us on this journey toward better health and wellness.
At Dooable Health, we're not just a podcast. We're a dedicated team of physicians, board-certified health coaches, and law enforcement experts.
And together, we're on a mission to serve employees and first responders, providing coaching workshops and masterclasses tailored to conquer the challenges of stress, anxiety, and burnout.
But our commitment doesn't stop there. We're also passionate about improving wellness for individuals like you, offering at-home lab testing and personalized coaching to support your unique needs.
Because at the end of the day, whether you're an employee, a first responder, or simply an individual striving for better health, we're all human. And we firmly believe that life can feel better for everyone when health is made doable.
So as you go about your day, remember that you're not alone on your journey toward wellness. We're here to support you, encourage you, and provide you with the tools you need to thrive.
So stay tuned for more inspiring conversations, expert insights, and actionable advice in our future episodes. Be sure to like and subscribe on your podcast platform.
And don't forget to visit our website at dooable.com, DOOABLE.com, for additional resources and updates. Until next time, remember that health is within reach.
And together we can make it doable.